Hey guys, tonight we slip past the heavy oaken gates of a medieval castle and wander through its inner courts, not as peasants or scribes, but as knights at rest. The torches are lit, the armory doors are locked, and for once no battles beckon. You're about to see what happens when the sword is sheathed and the helmet comes off. Spoiler alert. You probably won't survive the drinking contests. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. I love seeing who's drifting off around the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've just dismounted after a long patrol through the forests around your lord's estate. Your chainmail still hums faintly from the effort, and your thighs ache from hours in the saddle. But you're home now, back in the castle courtyard, where steam rises from the stables and firelight flickers through narrow windows above. You hand your reins to a sleepy squire and make your way inside, the weight of your armor sloughing off one piece at a time. The great hall greets you like an old friend. Long wooden tables, benches carved with years of wear, and a few dogs sleeping underfoot. The fire roars, and the smell of roasted boar reaches your nose. You nod to a few familiar faces, fellow knights and squires nursing mugs of ale, red-faced from laughter and drink. You find your seat near the hearth, stretching out your legs and letting your shoulders drop for the first time all day. Your gauntlets rest on the table. Your sword, though within reach, leans quietly against the wall. No one expects you to be on guard tonight. A young page offers you a bowl of stew and a slice of bread still warm from the oven. You eat slowly, savoring the way it settles your stomach and silences the lingering tension in your muscles. This isn't just food. It's ritual, the necessary prelude to the evening's diversions. Because for a night like you, fun isn't just drinking until you can't feel your chainmail. No, it's chess matches that last hours where bishops and rooks are moved like pieces of war. It's dice games in the corner with silver coins clinking against the wood. The thrill of chance after weeks of structured duty. It's storytelling, too. That's what begins next. The old knight, Sir Aldrich, gray-bearded and half-deaf, leans in and starts spinning tales from his youth. You've heard this one before, about a tournament where he unhorsed a French champion with a lance snapped in two. But you laugh anyway. That's the point. The stories grow bolder with each retelling, and tonight they're soaked in more wine than fact. One by one, the knights around you chime in, sharing their own ridiculous memories. Sparring matches that turned into wrestling bouts, drunken wagers that ended with someone tied naked to a tree, falcons that refused to come back from the hunt. There's something about the way knights joke with each other, mocking, yet never cruel. It's how you blow off steam. It's how you stay sane after the chaos of battle. And then someone suggests music. A minstrel is summoned, thin, spry, with fingers built for strings. He takes a seat by the fire and begins to play not a somber hymn, but a lively tune that sets feet tapping. You find yourself humming along. A few of the younger squires start a clumsy dance, and soon even Sir Aldrich is clapping in time. There's something wild and free about this moment. Something few people would expect from men trained to kill. But that's the thing about knights. You live in a world shaped by war and order, but inside you is a heartbeat that craves laughter, rhythm, and warmth. Tonight, you give it what it craves, and as the hour grows late and the hall quiets, you step outside beneath the stars. Your breath puffs in the cool air. The castle walls stretch above you, protective and silent. You look up at the sky, grateful for this rare peace. Tomorrow might bring drills, messages from the Lord, or whispers of a border skirmish. But tonight was just for fun. And you'll carry it with you like the echo of a song or the scent of fire in your cloak as you step back inside and head for rest. The morning after a night of revelry hits differently when you're wearing chainmail again. Your head is thick with sleep, your joints are slow to loosen, and there's still the lingering tang of ale on your tongue. But duty doesn't wait, not even for a night with a mild headache, and memories of last night's dancing squires. You rise early because the castle is already awake. Servants shuffle through corridors with buckets and brooms, the cooks shouting about burnt bread again. Somewhere a stable boy is trying to coax a mule into cooperation, but you're headed to the tilt yard. Because one of the most thrilling ways a knight finds entertainment and a test of skill is in the training yard. There's no real battle today, but that doesn't mean your blade gets to rest. You join a dozen others, all in various states of readiness. Some wear padded tunics for sparring, others just their shirts slick with sweat before the sun even clears the trees. The clack of wooden practice swords fills the air like applause. You grip your own training weapon, nod to your opponent, and circle slowly. It begins with a feint, then a parry, a quick shift of the foot and a calculated strike. You land a hit, then take one. It's not about winning. Not really. It's about rhythm-reaction pressure, about keeping your instincts sharp and your body in harmony with your blade. And the laughter between rounds, genuine raucous, is almost as important as the fighting itself. Someone gets knocked flat, and everyone cheers. You mock your friend's footwork, and he calls your stance a chicken's. It's brutal and fun, like a game of chess where the pawns punch back. By mid-morning, you've moved to jousting practice. You don't don full armor today is about finesse, not glory. The tilt yard is lined with straw bales, and a narrow barrier separates the two riding lanes. You mount your horse and steady your lance, nodding at your opponent down the line. The first charge rattles your spine. The impact of lance meeting shield is jarring like the jolt of thunder beneath your ribs. But you're smiling. You circle back, breathless and eager for another pass. This isn't battle, but it feels close enough to stir the blood, and it's all in good fun. Between tilts, there's time for archery. You stand beside your fellow knights, longbows in hand, eyeing the distant target with the same concentration you'd give a charging enemy. You pull release and feel the satisfying thud as the arrow strikes near center. Not a bullseye, but close enough to win a nod of approval. And then when sweat runs freely and muscles beg for rest, you all collapse beneath a tree's shade and pass around a jug of watered wine. No one talks about politics or war here. Just jokes, stories, and complaints about sore shoulders. Someone brings up the upcoming hunting trip, a favored pastime among knights. Not just for meat, but for excitement, prestige, and skill. Boar hunts are particularly dangerous. The animal charges tusks first, and it takes more than a sharp spear to bring it down. It takes courage. But that's for another day. For now, someone breaks out a set of bones, small dice carved from knuckle joints. A game begins, quick and loud, with shouts of double six and groans of curse your luck. Coins change hands. Someone accuses another of cheating. Another knight mimics the offended party's pout, and the whole circle erupts in laughter. By midday, you return to the castle, tired but fulfilled. A page brings water. Another offers you a towel. The halls smell of roasted meat again, and the rhythm of the castle seems to slow just a little. You sit in the shade, boots off, legs stretched out. Across the yard, a young knight is showing a squire how to balance a lance. The boy keeps dropping it. You smile. You remember when that was you, awkward, eager, full of questions and bruises. Now you're the one passing on the art of both war and mirth. Because for all the grim portraits history paints of medieval knights, There was this side too, the side that craved competition without carnage. That relished a day of sweat, skill, and laughter. That found joy in bruises that didn't bleed. And as you roll your aching shoulder and sip cool water, you feel a strange kind of pride. You've earned this life, and you're learning to enjoy it. The sun hangs lower now, casting long amber shafts across the inner courtyard as the day slows into something softer. You've washed, eaten, and taken a brief nap beneath the stone archway that leads toward the herb garden. But knights aren't just trained for combat and tournaments. They're expected to be cultured to know words as well as weapons. And so as twilight settles in, you make your way toward the chapel library. It's cooler inside, quiet. Dust motes float like tiny stars in beams of fading sunlight that spill through narrow, stained glass. You greet the elderly monk who keeps the scrolls, and he nods without looking up from his reading. You're not the only knight here either. 2 others sit hunched over a manuscript, whispering in hushed Latin, debating the pronunciation of a particular phrase. You select a favorite, an Arthurian romance copied painstakingly onto calfskin parchment. It's worn in places, ink faded where fingers have traced too often. But you know the tale well. A knight errant, an impossible quest, a beautiful lady disguised as a beggar. It's all beautifully absurd. You sit in a carved wooden chair and let the story carry you. Even as a knight trained in the ways of war, duty, and discipline, you find yourself enchanted by the rhythm of old poetry. There's fun in words, too. In riddles and rhymes, in the way a clever twist of phrase can silence a room faster than a sword. This is another kind of pleasure. Not the rowdy fun of drinking games or the thunder of horses charging, but a quiet delight, the joy of imagining someone else's life, someone else's battle, someone else's victory, and sometimes someone else's failure. Later, a young squire asks if you'll help him learn his letters. You're not a tutor, but you nod, because someone once did that for you, and because it's deeply satisfying to watch him slowly sound out the words, honneur et loyauté, honor and loyalty. He stumbles, frowns, then smiles when he gets it right. Afterward, you join a few companions in the solar, a warmer, more private chamber where noble families spend their leisure hours. It's not just knights here. There are ladies too, spinning wool, mending embroidery, and sometimes joining in the evening's games. One begins plucking at a lute, and the soft melody fills the room like a lullaby too proud to end. Someone suggests a game of courtly wit, a kind of verbal fencing match. You must complete a couplet, one says, pointing at you, but it must be about love and horses. You grin, thinking for a moment, and offer no steed I've known has kicked as wild as her sharp gaze when once she smiled. The room chuckles. Someone else tries, and then another. The game goes on. No one keeps score, but pride swells each time a clever verse lands true. This kind of fun, refined, restrained, playful is just as valuable to a knight's soul as the weight of armor or the feel of reins in hand. It reminds you that even in a world of blood and duty, you are still human, still capable of art, of imagination, of a chuckle shared in candlelight. The hour grows late, and one of the ladies reads aloud from a story of Charlemagne. Her voice is low and musical, and everyone listens. It's a tale of betrayal, of friendship, of an emperor's grief. But when she finishes, there's no applause. Just silence, thick with thought. You rise quietly, offer thanks, and step out into the evening breeze. The castle walls are still warm from the day's sun, and the night carries the scent of herbs and hay. You realize then that you've spent the entire day in play. In battle games, in dice, in poetry, and now in stories. And yet somehow none of it felt idle, none of it wasted. Because for a night, fun isn't about escaping your role. It's about feeding the fire inside it. And tonight, your flame feels steady, bright, human. So you walk slowly back to your quarters, the sounds of lute music still dancing at your back, and let the night fold gently around you like a cloak. The next morning comes not with urgency, but with the slow unfolding of sunlight across the stone floor. You wake not to trumpet or alarm, but to the distant sound of horses nickering and chickens scratching somewhere beyond the wall. It's a rare day, no immediate duties, no looming battles, no inspections from your lord. Just a full, quiet morning. And on days like this, knights find fun in the open fields, hunting not for necessity, but for challenge, companionship, and the thrill of the chase. You dress quickly in lighter gear, no armor, just a leather jerkin, high boots, and your favored cloak. Your bow is slung over one shoulder, and your hunting knife rests in its sheath at your side. Outside, the party gathers. A dozen of you mounted and ready, including a few noble ladies riding side-saddle cloaks flapping gently in the breeze. The hounds are barking and pacing, already picking up the scent of something wild. The huntsman calls for silence, his voice sharp and low. He lifts the horn to his lips, and with a long, winding blast, the hunt begins. You gallop into the woods. Branches whip past you. The ground thunders under hooves. Leaves scatter in your wake. You catch glimpses of deer darting between trees, and the hounds split off in pursuit. A couple of knights break away, giving chase. You keep to the left, deeper into the thicket where the light breaks in golden columns, and the air smells of pine and loam. You finally spot your quarry, a wild boar, tusks gleaming, tearing through the underbrush. You steady your bow stand in the stirrups and fire. The arrow flies fast, sure, but just grazes the beast's flank. It lets out a furious squeal and charges toward a clearing. The adrenaline rushes through you like battle. But there's laughter too from the knight beside you, who nearly topples from his saddle trying to turn fast enough. You both howl with laughter, the kind that comes from near misses and wild freedom. Eventually, the boar is brought down by another rider, a younger knight who beams with pride as the others cheer. It's not about the kill, though. Not really. It's about the ride, the thrill, the unpredictability. It's about being alive and proving that life, even outside the battlefield, is worth savoring. Afterward, the group dismounts in a clearing near a brook. The ladies unpack small loaves, soft cheese, and spiced wine. You sit cross-legged in the grass, your back against a fallen log, listening to the sounds of birds and the lazy babble of water nearby. Someone produces a set of carved wooden pieces. It's a game called Fox and Geese, a favorite among knights for its mix of strategy and bluffing. You play around, then another feigning confidence until someone calls your bluff, and the entire group bursts into laughter. No gold changes hands, but reputations shift by inches. Someone suggests swimming, and before long, boots are kicked off and tunics flung over rocks. You wade into the water. It's cold, shocking at first, but then soothing. Knights are supposed to be noble, dignified. But here in the water, you're just another person splashing with friends, dunking someone when they least expect it, and pretending not to care that your hair is a mess. Even the oldest knight in the group, a quiet man with a half-healed scar down his cheek, joins in swimming slowly, but smiling the whole time. This is what fun looks like outside of armor. Not duels, not feasts, just simple pleasure, being surrounded by people who understand the weight you carry and helping each other lay it down, if only for an afternoon. As the sun leans toward late day, you begin the slow ride home. The horses are tired, the hounds are quieter now, and conversation drifts into contented silence. You arrive back at the castle sore, sun-dappled, and utterly at peace. It's strange you think how much joy can be found in things the world doesn't write songs about: missed arrows, muddy boots, a stolen moment in a stream. But for a night, those are the treasures you keep long after your sword grows dull. Back at the castle, the day's warmth still lingers in the thick stones as evening begins to settle. You've changed into dry clothes, your favored tunic worn soft with use, and made your way to the tower chamber that overlooks the courtyard. It's quiet here, but it's not solitude you're after. It's one of the most underappreciated pleasures in a knight's life: games of the mind. Across the room, a table is already set. A heavy wooden chessboard hand-carved with pieces shaped like robed bishops and towering kings. Opposite you sits Sir Edric, a fellow knight known as much for his ruthless endgames as his dismal singing voice. You've played him before and lost. But tonight, something in the air feels different. He opens with a bold gambit, a knight leaping early. You counter with caution, slow and thoughtful. Every move is quiet war, no blood, no bruises, but just as tense. The room narrows. Outside, someone laughs too loud near the kitchens, and somewhere far off, a dog barks. But none of it touches you. The only thing that matters is the board. And this too is a kind of fun that few would guess knights enjoy. Not all joy comes from tournaments and weapons. There's a special satisfaction in watching a friend's brow furrow, in trading small victories, in pretending not to see a trap when you're walking your opponent straight into it. After an hour, Sir Edric curses softly. You've cornered his queen. He tips his king in defeat with mock drama, then insists on a rematch. But not tonight. Tonight, another kind of entertainment awaits. A troupe of traveling performers has been granted permission to entertain the court. You make your way to the great hall, where benches have been cleared and torches burn brightly, casting golden halos against the stone. The performers are a strange, colorful bunch: jugglers with wild hair, a woman who breathes fire, and a troupe of actors who carry painted masks. You settle in beside your companions, cup of ale in hand, and let the show begin. There's something contagious in the way they move light on their feet, their words sharp as swordplay. They reenact an absurd romance between a lovesick monk and a tavern maid with a wooden leg. The knights beside you roar with laughter at the punchlines. Even the stoic captain of the guard wipes away a tear of mirth at the climax when the monk is thrown into a barrel and rolled down stage. The fire breather is next. She steps into the center of the room, eyes locked with the audience. She takes a long breath and sends out a stream of flame so bright and sudden that it silences the entire hall. You feel the heat on your face, your mouth slightly agape. And just as the crowd begins to cheer, she does it again, bigger, louder. You look around and notice even the lord of the manor is clapping. When the final bow is taken and coins are tossed into the performers' caps, there's a soft sense of unity in the room. Laughter has leveled the ranks. Lords, knights, squires, servants, all laughing at the same jokes, applauding the same feats, and humming the same little melody as the actors pack up their props. You linger for a moment afterward, sipping the last of your ale before slipping out into the corridor. Your mind is light, your heart lifted. It strikes you how vital these moments are, these tiny pockets of absurdity, beauty, and cleverness. Because while knights are trained to endure hardship, it's these moments that remind you why you endure it. You think back to the chess game, to Edric's groan, to the firelit stage and the jester's wild grin. These are the things that shape you, not just the scars and victories, but the stories you'll retell with a laugh years from now. And as you walk back through the quiet hallways, boots echoing softly off the stones, you feel whole. You feel more than a soldier. You feel alive. With the laughter of the evening still humming in your chest, you retire to your chamber. A modest room by noble standards, but spacious enough to house your armor. Stand a chest for your belongings, and a wide window that opens to the courtyard below. You light a single candle, and its glow throws soft shadows against the rough-hewn walls. The stone may be cold, but the memory of firelight and gestures' songs keeps the chill at bay. You ease into a seat by the window arms resting on the sill and look out across the darkened landscape. The stars have come out in full force tonight, a million glittering eyes stitched into a black velvet sky. Below, the faint clop of a guard's patrol echoes between towers. All is still. All is safe. And tonight your fun continues not with noise or wine or wagers, but with a different kind of thrill training your falcon. You turn as a soft rustle announces her presence. There, perched silently in the corner, is your bird, a proud peregrine with sleek feathers and bright, unblinking eyes. She watches you with sharp intelligence, talons wrapped tightly around her wooden perch. You approach slowly, whispering to her, in that strange, low language falconers know, a mix of hums and gentle clicks. She hops to your glove with a rustle of wings, light as a breeze, but carrying all the presence of a queen. Together, you step outside. The training field is dimly lit, but the moonlight is enough. You hold out your arm and release her. She rises in silence, a black shape against the sky, circling above you once, twice, then diving straight for the lure you swing from your belt. She hits it with grace and fury. This is a different sort of fun. Not the clashing swords or laughter over dice, but something sharper, more intimate. It's a game of precision, of trust between hunter and beast. You reward her with a scrap of meat and whisper praise. Her head tilts as if she understands. When she returns to her perch, you feel an odd pride. Knights are warriors, yes, but to command nature, to mold instinct with patience, to feel that primal connection to something wooled, that too is joy. Back inside, your squire is dozing by the hearth, your armor laid out for the morrow. You let him sleep. There's no need to rouse him tonight. Instead, you return to your writing desk. Yes, knights write. Some barely scratch out their names, but you were trained by a monk once and the habit stuck. You dip your quill, steady your hand, and begin recording the day's events, not in full, but just enough to remember boar missed. Fire breather astounding. Edric still terrible at chess. It's a small ritual, but an important one. Memory is fragile and fun. If you don't capture, it slips away like smoke. You roll up the scroll, tuck it back into the leather pouch where other entries sleep, and snuff out the candle. But the night's not quite over. You gather with a few others in the narrow hall that connects the living quarters. It's late, too late for most, but here in this quiet space, stories continue. A knight begins recounting a prank from last year, a suit of armor filled with frogs left in the Lord's study. Another tells of a love letter sent to the wrong lady, resulting in a chase through the orchard and 3 broken flower pots. You're nearly breathless from laughter when a younger knight, red-faced, tries to defend himself against a tale that keeps growing with every retelling. It wasn't a goose, he insists. It was a swan. Which makes it worse, someone cries. These are the stories no bard will ever sing, the songs no court will ever request. But here among friends, they're gold. Eventually, one by one, the nights yawn, stretch, and head off to sleep. You linger a moment longer in the dark hallway, hand resting against the cool stone wall, a half smile still tugging at your lips. Fun in the life of a knight takes many forms. A match of wit, a bird's graceful dive, a midnight tale shared by firelight. You return to your chamber, slip beneath the thick woolen blankets and close your eyes. And you fall asleep not as a defender of land or bearer of arms, but as someone who today simply lived well. The sun creeps through the arrow-slit window like a slow-blooming torch. You rise before most of the castle stirs, rubbing sleep from your eyes, your body still pleasantly sore from yesterday's escapades. But this morning promises a different kind of amusement, a tournament of sorts, but not the kind with armor or broken lances. No, today is a day of riddles. You dress with care, not in formal garb, but in something comfortable and dignified. A crisp tunic with your family's crest, a polished belt boots with supple leather soles. Because while you won't be sweating under a helmet, you will be sweating under pressure. In the great hall, a long table has been cleared, and at its head sits Lady Eleanor, the Lord's sister, who, despite never wielding a sword, is said to be able to slay a man with a riddle alone. She smiles serenely, a fan in one hand and a folded parchment in the other. You're not alone. A few fellow knights join you, along with some visiting nobles, and even a merchant's son who's known for being too clever for his own good. The mood is light, but the stakes are real. Today's winner earns a jeweled pendant and bragging rights that last well beyond the harvest. The first riddle is spoken slowly. Alive without breath, as cold as death, never thirsty, ever drinking, all in mail, never clinking. You know it instantly, a fish, but you wait a moment, letting silence tease the room. Then you answer. Lady Eleanor raises an eyebrow. Correct, she says, and smiles just enough to make the merchant boy beside you sweat. The riddles continue, each more perplexing than the last. There are gasps of realization, groans of defeat, and the occasional triumphant grin when someone finally cracks a line that's kept them frowning for minutes. One clever knight tries to bluff his way through an answer. He's caught mid-sentence and laughter rolls across the room. Even Eleanor chuckles, though she doesn't let him off the hook entirely. For effort, she says, and tosses him a sugared fig. By midday, the winner is declared not you, but Sir Caldus, whose quiet manner belies a mind as sharp as any blade. He bows deeply and accepts the pendant, though you suspect the real prize is the applause and laughter that followed his final answer. After the game ends, you retreat to the training green not to spar, but to try something far more ridiculous, mock jousting on foot. Someone's fashioned fake lances from broomsticks. Helmets are swapped for kitchen pots. The rules are simple. Two combatants run at each other full speed across the courtyard, attempting to unseat one another from imaginary steeds. You're drafted into a match almost immediately. You square off against a fellow knight twice your size, a soup kettle on his head, shouting, "En garde," like a madman. You lower your broomstick and charge. The impact is harmless but hilarious. You both tumble into a pile of hay set up for exactly this purpose. The onlookers cheer like it's the final tilt of a royal tournament. Lying on your back in the hay, catching your breath from laughing too hard, you realize this kind of fun is the purest form of relief. No honor to defend, no enemy to defeat. Just joy, raw and unpolished. Later that evening, a group of younger squires asks if you'll join them for a night walk. Curious, you agree. With torches in hand and soft boots on, you all move through the outer village past the blacksmith's shop, the baker's stone oven still faintly warm. The stars above are brilliant tonight, and the moon is a low silver disk watching silently. You tell them stories not of war, but of the time a fox stole your boot during a campaign, or when you accidentally sat in the Lord's chair at a feast. They hang on every word, eyes wide, not because the tales are grand, but because you make them real. One of the squires points out a shape in the sky. "That one looks like a lion," he says. You tilt your head, squint, and nod. "Or a chicken in armor." They all laugh, and someone dares you to name all the constellations in the most ridiculous ways possible. You do. There's a warmth in the air that has nothing to do with fire. Just knights and squires laughing in the dark, finding comfort in the sky and each other. Because sometimes a night's fun isn't about the noise. It's about the moments when the world pauses and you remember how to smile at stars. The next morning arrives with a mist that clings low to the earth like a blanket not ready to be thrown off. The castle is hushed, the sort of silence that suggests something special is coming. And indeed, it is today marks the beginning of the annual Harvest Festival, a rare moment in the calendar, when everyone from lord to scullery maid sets aside labor and shares in a celebration of life's more earthly pleasures. As a knight, you're not expected to work the fields, but that doesn't mean you don't enjoy watching the villagers' carts roll in from the countryside heaped with apples, barley, root vegetables, and bundles of fragrant herbs. You join the others in the outer bailey, where preparations have already begun, bunting strung across the tower's long tables being set up for communal feasting, musicians tuning their lutes and fiddles beneath the brightening sky. A squire hands you a small carved token. It's a festival pass of sorts, granting you free rein to join any of the events. You smile and tuck it into your belt. Today is about indulgence, not just in food or wine, but in laughter, games, and memories. You wander toward the green where contests have begun. Children race in burlap sacks, shrieking with joy as they tumble over each other. Older villagers take part in wrestling matches, their sleeves rolled up, faces red with effort and mirth. One of the kitchen boys is leading a dance, and even the castle's steward, usually a stern figure, is clapping along awkwardly, his grin completely unguarded. You're invited into a mead tasting competition. You hesitate for a heartbeat, then accept. A wooden bench, a row of flagons, and a handful of participants, already flushed with cheer, greet you. Each round, you're offered a different brew, some spiced with cloves, others sweet as honey, and one suspiciously smoky that tastes like it was fermented in an old boot. You make it to the final round, before admitting defeat, the crowd applauding your effort as if you'd just won a war. Afterward, you step into the shadow of the apple trees lining the festival lane. Here, another tradition unfolds, story competitions. Anyone may step forward to share a tale, a hero's journey, a ghost's lament, a lover's mistake. Some tell true stories, others lie beautifully. A young woman speaks of a knight who once fell in love with a goose that turned into a princess. A farmer follows with a tragic ballad about a cheese wheel that escaped its cellar and never returned. You find yourself laughing so hard your sides ache. Then someone nudges you. Your turn. You rise slowly, brush straw from your cloak, and clear your throat. You tell the tale of the time you lost your sword, mid-duel, how it flew from your grip and landed upright in a pie, and how your opponent slipped on a beat trying to retrieve it. You exaggerate the details just enough to make it sing. The crowd roars. One of the elder women wipes tears from her eyes. "You should be a bard," she says. "No, no," you reply, bowing low. "Just a knight who knows how to fall into pies." The sun arcs high and the feast begins. Whole pigs roast on spits, their skin crackling. Trencher bread is piled with soft cheese, smoked fish, and stewed apples. You eat beside farmers and nobles alike, the trading jokes, stealing extra slices of roasted garlic, and defending your spot on the bench like it's a battlefield. As dusk approaches, torches are lit, and the harvest dance begins. This perhaps is the most joyful moment of all. Lutes, drums, flutes, music surrounds you. The tempo rises. You join the circle of dancers. Boots stomp, cloaks twirl, hands clap in rhythm. You dance not with form, but with heart caught in the current of motion and laughter. Someone spins you, and you spin them back, and for a moment you forget entirely that you've ever worn armor or wielded a blade. You are just human, one of many, laughing under the sky. When the music finally slows and the dancers collapse in a heap of limbs and joy, you lie on your back in the grass, the stars once again blinking into view. You think about how strange it is to be trained for battle, and yet find your soul so deeply nourished by celebration. Fun doesn't always have to be wild or loud or clever. Sometimes it's just the soft satisfaction of joining others in the pleasure of being alive. You close your eyes. The grass is cool beneath you. The air smells of apples and smoke. And you smile. Because today you remembered not only what it means to be a knight, but what it means to be home. By the time the festival's embers have cooled and the last of the lanterns flicker out, life in the castle slowly begins to return to its rhythm. The revelry of harvest lingers only in the tired smiles of servants sweeping up flower petals and knights nursing sore muscles from over-enthusiastic dancing. But you wake up refreshed, oddly buoyant, and ready for something with a bit more adventure. And what better way to entertain yourself today than with the ultimate test of camaraderie, daring, and almost certain embarrassment, a scavenger hunt devised entirely by the squires. You discover the scheme after breakfast when a folded parchment appears beside your trencher of oats. Unrolling it reveals scrawled instructions, a list of riddled clues, and a cheeky signature, "Good luck, Sir Stumbles in Mud." You raise an eyebrow. The squires have outdone themselves. Your first task, retrieve a red feather from the chamber of the castle's most notoriously grumpy falconer. You tread carefully into the loft, tiptoe past his sleeping dog, and somehow manage to nab the feather without losing a finger or your dignity. Just barely. Next, bring back a piece of barley bread from the kitchen without being seen, a challenge worthy of a knight indeed. You sneak through the corridors, hiding behind a tapestry as the cook emerges humming. You make it into the pantry, grab the bread, and exit through the scullery like a ghost, a victorious ghost with crumbs in his pocket. The clues grow increasingly ridiculous. Retrieve a boot from the roof of the North Tower. How did it get there? Find the pebble shaped like a chicken, convince the old gardener to part with his prized turnip. You laugh so hard during the turnip duel, a mock sword fight using carrots and onions, that your stomach aches. The gardener, grinning wide beneath his tangled beard, gives you the turnip in surrender. You fight dirty, he says. Only when root vegetables are involved, you reply with a bow. By mid-afternoon, a small crowd has gathered, watching you and a few other brave knights complete the final challenge. Sing a verse of your favorite bard's song from atop the main gate tower, loudly, while flapping your arms. You oblige with a theatrical performance that will likely be remembered for seasons to come, ending with a deep bow and a grin that splits your face. This is the kind of fun that keeps a knight humble. You're not a symbol, not a statue or figure carved into a cathedral. You're a man who can sing terribly and still be cheered for it. Later that day, a fellow knight invites you to join him in fletching arrows of all things. It seems dull at first, trimming feathers, shaping shafts, tying sinew. But before long, it becomes its own quiet pleasure. You sit side by side beneath an awning in the yard, the soft snip of knives and gentle murmuring of voices the only sounds. You talk not about battles, but about the things you miss. The scent of your mother's soup, the first horse you ever rode, that foolish dream of becoming a minstrel long before you could even lift a sword. The arrow in your hand slowly takes shape, and with it so does a sense of calm. Funny your companion says, twisting a feather into place, how the most boring tasks are sometimes the most peaceful. You nod. It's the stillness. It sneaks up on you. As evening returns, the squires reveal a surprise, a hand-drawn map of your scavenger hunt route, now inked onto a piece of parchment and hung in the dining hall. A new tradition, they say. Next year, someone else will wear the turnip crown. You raise your tankard and toast to that. In a world that so often asks you to be brave, hard, and noble, there's something profoundly healing in being a little foolish. In letting go, in laughing at yourself, and in remembering that fun doesn't always come with glory, it often comes with feathers, turnips, and very sore legs. As the stars rise once again, you feel no pressure to be important tonight, only to be present. The morning breaks with a crispness that bites pleasantly at your cheeks as you step into the courtyard. A low mist drapes the castle grounds, curling around stone walls and curling beneath the hooves of horses being led to pasture. Today feels different, quiet, yes, but brimming with possibility. You're drawn toward the archery range, not out of duty, but because there's something meditative in the way a bow bends and sings. You find your favorite bow hanging just where you left it. Its polished wood worn to the shape of your grip. You notch the first arrow, inhale the damp morning air, and draw. Thwip, a perfect shot, right into the outer ring. You laugh softly. Maybe not perfect, but satisfying. And that's what today is about, satisfactions, small and steady. Fun that doesn't erupt, but simmers. Soon others arrive. A few squires, some visiting knights, even a noblewoman with sleeves rolled to her elbows, and a look of mischievous confidence. An impromptu competition begins not for prize or prestige, but for the simple joy of besting your friends with grace and a bit of smack talk. When one of the squires lands a bullseye, he whoops and dances in place, nearly dropping his bow. You and the others cheer, not because he won, but because his joy is so unguarded, so full. By midday, you've moved on to another timeless nightly indulgence, hawking, for pleasure, not for food. With your trusty peregrine perched on your arm, you ride out to the meadow just beyond the castle's edge. No lords, no ceremonies, just the quiet thrill of releasing her into the sky and watching her spiral upward until she becomes a speck, then descend in a blur of feathers and precision. She doesn't even catch anything today, and that's fine. This isn't about the catch. It's about the flight. You return to the stables and brush down your steed yourself, ignoring the stable hand's offer to assist. There's something therapeutic in the rhythm brush-stroke breathe. The horse huffs in contentment, nudging your shoulder with her warm muzzle. You press your forehead to hers, whispering nonsense words. She listens anyway. In the afternoon, you find your way to the scribe's tower, a part of the castle rarely visited by knights unless summoned. But today, you come by choice. You've heard they've received a shipment of new scrolls, tales from distant courts, recipes from exotic lands, and one peculiar illustrated guide to something called musical vegetables, whatever that means. You sit beside the fire scroll in hand and read slowly, savoring each word. Some knights scoff at reading for pleasure, but you know better. You've fought enough battles to understand that the mind needs feeding just as much as the body. One passage describes a faraway land where warriors wear silk and duel with fans. You imagine yourself there, swirling a fan with deadly grace and almost snort aloud at the absurdity of it. But still, you keep reading. Later that evening, you join a quiet gathering in the solar. A bard plays soft melodies on a lute, while you and others sip warm cider. No dancing, no shouting. Just the kind of peace that feels earned. One of the ladies begins a slow tale, half poem, half memory, about a knight who fell in love with a voice he heard through a wall. You close your eyes and drift with it, letting the rhythm of her words carry you like a gentle tide. The fire crackles. The room smells faintly of cloves and wax. And you realize this might be your favorite kind of fun, of all the kind that asks nothing of you but your presence. You don't need to perform. You don't need to impress. You only need to be here. And as the evening fades and the last note of the lute dies away, you find yourself smiling, not because anything grand happened, but because nothing needed to. Some days, a knight's greatest treasure isn't the battlefield, the feast, or even the applause. It's the quiet, the hum of a bowstring, the rustle of feathers, the laughter of a squire, the weight of a story in your lap. It's this. And it's enough. You awaken to a hush, the kind of silence that feels thick and expectant, like the world is holding its breath. The castle is slower this morning. No clatter of hooves, no shouted orders from the yard. Just the muffled sounds of footsteps on cold stone and the occasional creak of wooden doors opening to the gray chill outside. It's the perfect day for games of the mind, and luckily, one of the older knights, Sir Everald, has invited a handful of companions, including you, to his chamber for a challenge. Few ever win the game of kings. It's not chess exactly, though it resembles it at a glance. The pieces are hand-carved, stained in hues of forest green and black walnut, and the board is larger than usual, etched with winding rivers and hills. The rules are arcane, evolving with each turn governed by cards drawn from a gilded deck beside the board. You settle into a chair watching as Sir Everald smirks and moves his piece with casual precision. The river floods, he says, drawing a card. Your archers are swept away. You blink. What river? The one I just summoned. He replies, utterly serious. It's absurd. It's wonderful. You fall headfirst into the chaos, matching wits with people who barely suppress their laughter at every twist in the game. Your forces are decimated by imaginary plagues, enchanted soup bowls, and at one point, a flock of airborne goats. You lose spectacularly. But your defeat is met with applause, and Sir Everald offers you a small wooden token, an engraved goat for your valiant efforts in strategic nonsense. You accept it with a theatrical bow, already looking forward to the next round. Later that day, you make your way to the inner gardens where a different kind of game is underway, a poetic duel. Two noble cousins stand beneath a flowering trellis, exchanging lines of verse that range from exquisitely romantic to hilariously absurd. You listen as one recites, her eyes twin stars above the moor, her breath the scent of stable floor. A roar of laughter rises from the onlookers. When it's your turn, you stand on the old fountain's rim and deliver a poem about the tragic romance between a knight and a duck. It rhymes, poorly wanders off topic, and ends with a quack. The crowd loves it. And why shouldn't they? You're not here to win hearts today, you're here to play. After the duel, you slip away to the upper parapets, a spot few visit in the colder months. From here, the world stretches wide and quiet, frost curling across the thatched rooftops of nearby cottages, smoke spiraling slowly from chimneys, a shepherd guiding sheep like drifting clouds across the hills. You pull your cloak tighter and lean on the stone wall, breathing in the cold until it bites. There's a stillness here, a kind of fun that doesn't require an audience or applause. Just space, just sky. You stay there for a long while, watching nothing in particular, and somehow that becomes the highlight of your day. Later that night, the scribes invite a few knights to help illuminate a manuscript. Not for any great work, just for practice and leisure. You find yourself hunched over a scroll tongue caught between your teeth, trying to draw a golden dragon in the corner of a page. It comes out looking more like a lizard that's had a bad day. The scribe beside you chuckles. Perhaps your talents lie more in duck poetry. You grin. Perhaps. But as the candles flicker and the ink dries, you feel it again, that quiet contentment that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. The kind of joy that isn't flashy or loud. It doesn't roar. It whispers. And tonight, it whispers that fun doesn't need to shout. Sometimes it's in the cards you're dealt. Sometimes it's in the laughter that follows a rhyme gone wrong. And sometimes it's just in the act of showing up fully foolishly, freely as you are. Today begins not with fanfare or excitement, but with a persistent drizzle that paints the castle stones slick and silver. Most of the knights groan at the sight of it. Training is postponed, patrols scaled back, and the archery yard turned to mud. But you see it as an opportunity. Because on days like these, the castle becomes its own kind of playground, a labyrinth of forgotten corridors and secret games. You start in the armory, where Sir Caldus is already fashioning a ridiculous contraption from broken spear shafts, old helm plumes, and a laundry basket. Siege croquet, he declares. Losers have to eat a spoonful of pickled eel. You spend the better part of an hour setting up the course, winding through the hallways, under tables, across staircases, and somehow through the laundry room, where startled washerwomen threaten you with wet linens. Each gate is made from wooden stools or pots, and each knight must push a round of bread across the floor, using only a battered gauntlet. It is profoundly stupid, and also completely delightful. You lose spectacularly at the third turn, when your bread ball ricochets off a flagstone and into a brazier. Caldus bellows with triumph. You accept your punishment with dignity, choking down the pickled eel, while the others laugh until they cry. Afterward, you find yourself drawn toward the castle library, not for reading, but for another type of quiet pleasure castle riddles. The librarian, an older woman with eyes like flint and a wicked sense of humor, has hidden tiny scrolls all around the shelves, each containing a question that must be answered before you may pass. Some are historical. Some are jokes. One is just a drawing of a goose wearing boots. You spend an hour solving your way from shelf to shelf, occasionally bumping into others doing the same. You trade hints, share groans, and cheer when someone finally deciphers the pun hidden in the 7 scrolls of soggy scones. By midday, the rain hasn't stopped, but neither has the fun. You wander into the kitchen where the staff is in unusually high spirits. A barrel of apples has arrived, and someone suggests a contest best impromptu apple recipe. You have no culinary training, but you know flavor. So rolling up your sleeves, you join the chaos. You mash apples with honey, stuff them inside stale bread crusts, sprinkle on cinnamon from a dusty tin, and shove the whole thing into the edge of the hearth where the fire runs hottest. It burns. A little. Still the taste not bad. The cook proclaims you winner of most adventurous texture. Your prize a warm roll and a wink. Later you discover a group of younger knights in the upper barracks passing the time with a game of one truth, one lie. It's a simple pastime. Everyone takes turns sharing two stories, one true, one false. The others must guess which is which. When it's your turn, you say, "I once fell asleep standing during a royal audience," and "I once beat a monk in a cheese-eating contest." The guesses are hilariously split. The truth, you did fall asleep. The monk. Never happened, but you almost wish it had. The laughter that follows is easy unforced. You feel young, not just in body, but in spirit, and it's a beautiful thing. As the storm deepens into evening, the castle grows cozier. Candles glow golden in alcoves, and fires crackle in every hearth. You find a spot near the main hall's giant fireplace, stretch out with a blanket and a half-finished mug of cider, and listen as someone begins telling ghost stories. You add your own, a tale of a haunted helmet that whispers compliments in the dead of night. You're the bravest, it says. You've got the shiniest greaves. It gets a good laugh, and someone adds that the helmet also sings lullabies if left in a dark closet. The night drifts on like smoke, slow and easy. And you realize once again that fun isn't always found in the grand or glorious. Sometimes it's hiding in a basket of bread, or a whispered riddle, or the sound of rain pattering against old stone. Sometimes it's in simply saying yes to games, to stories, to laughter to each other, even on a rainy day, especially on a rainy day. When the sun finally returns, cutting through the lingering gray with golden clarity, it feels like the entire castle exhales in relief. The rain has passed, the courtyards are drying, and a familiar energy returns to the air. Not the rush of duty, nor the tension of combat readiness, but a lighter spark. It's the kind of day that practically begs for outdoor mischief. You join a group of knights and squires in the lower field where someone has set up a makeshift tournament of ridiculous contests. Not jousting or swordplay, no, today's events are far more prestigious sack racings, in full armor blindfolded cabbage tosses, and the ever-dignified wheelbarrow relay. You volunteer, of course. It begins with the armor dash, a race across the field in your full gear helmet, rattling sword flapping at your hip, while trying not to fall flat on your face. Halfway through, you trip over your own scabbard and roll into a hay bale to uproarious applause. You come in last, but you receive the knight most likely to fight a turnip ribbon. The next event is even better, mock jousting on donkeys. Two of the castle's gentlest beasts are borrowed from the stables fitted with decorative cloths and wooden saddles. The lances are broom handles. The shields are old pie tins, and the rules are simple: don't fall off. You and your opponent trot toward each other at a snail's pace, donkeys lazily chewing as they move. You both raise your brooms. You make contact. Your shield wobbles. Then both donkeys stop completely and refuse to move again. The crowd roars. It's declared a tie, and the donkeys are declared the true winners. After the tournament, everyone gathers around a long trestle table under the sun. Trenchers of bread, cold meats, fresh berries, and pitchers of spiced wine are passed around freely. No titles, no ranks, just people lounging in the grass, eating with their fingers, telling stories with their mouths full. At one point, you lie on your back arms, behind your head, watching a single hawk circle high overhead. If I were a bird, someone nearby muses, I'd steal every shiny helm on this field. You laugh. And I'd be the bird that pecks the cook's window for more pie. It sparks a full-blown conversation about which bird's nights would be each more absurd than the last. You're eventually crowned Sir Pigeon of the battlements. Later, a small group sneaks away to the forest's edge for a favorite pastime among off-duty knights' stick duels. No armor, no steel, just branches whittled to handles and rules agreed upon by honor alone. Your opponent is quick, and the match becomes a blur of footwork and grinning intensity. At one point, you both end up on the ground, laughing and breathless, no one entirely sure who won. But that's the point. The game is the joy, not the victory. As dusk approaches, a fire is lit in the open yard. Someone strums a lute. Another beats a rhythm on a barrel. A third begins a rowdy drinking song that evolves into an impromptu sing-along. You join in loudly off-key, not caring in the least. And when the sky goes indigo and the first star appears, a hush falls naturally over the gathering. No one calls for silence. It just happens. You sit with a warm cup in your hands, heart still light from the day's laughter, legs sore from running and falling and climbing and dancing. And in that moment you think how strange and beautiful it is that knighthood, a life so often defined by duty and discipline, holds room for play. That even those who are trained to fight, bleed, and die for others can still be fools in fields, poets in gardens, and champions of donkey jousts. The fire crackles. Someone begins to hum. And you lean back, eyes on the stars, knowing this day will linger in your memory not for glory, but for the simple, unshakable joy of being ridiculously human. The next morning begins with the distinct sound of clattering hooves, not war horses this time, but ponies trotting awkwardly in a circle just beyond the orchard. You peer out a narrow window to investigate, only to find one of the visiting knights leading what appears to be a pony jousting lesson for children. You can't help but smile. The youngest pages and squires are lined up, wooden helmets, slightly askew, broom-handle lances held in oversized gauntlets. Their laughter echoes across the field, high-pitched and uncontrolled. The knight, red-faced and trying to maintain order, meets your gaze and waves you over. You hesitate, but only for a second. In moments, you're beside them, lending a hand, adjusting a child's helmet, showing another how to hold the makeshift shield. When one of the ponies stubbornly refuses to move, you lead it gently by the reins, becoming not a knight, but a smiling escort for a 6-year-old warrior. Eventually, someone suggests the adults have a go, and before you know it, you're perched on the back of a pony that looks thoroughly unimpressed with the whole ordeal. Across from you, Sir Elric, the tallest knight in the realm, barely fits on his mount knees, nearly dragging in the grass. Your charge is slow, wobbly, and utterly hilarious. When your broomsticks clash in the middle, both ponies stop dead. Sir Elric's helmet falls off. You're laughing so hard, you nearly slide off your saddle. The crowd, now a mix of children's squires and castle staff, is in tears. Afterwards, still wiping tears from your eyes, you help clean up the arena and are rewarded with a flower crown from one of the young pages. You're the nicest knight, she declares solemnly. You bow with full sincerity. An honor, milady. As the afternoon warms, you find yourself invited to a game of castle hide-and-seek, an old tradition that hasn't been played in years. But today, with spirits high, it seems fitting. You join a mix of knights, scribes, and even 2 cooks in the game. The rules are simple. The kitchen bell rings, everyone hides, and the last one found wins a pitcher of elderflower wine. You duck into an unused chapel behind an altar and hold your breath as footsteps echo nearby. The thrill is childish, glorious. Eventually, you're found by a grinning squire who gleefully announces, "Found the big one." You laugh and join the growing circle of found players until only one remains a seamstress who managed to wedge herself inside a barrel of grain. Cheers erupt. The wine is shared. As the sky turns amber, you join a lawn game of quoits, tossing iron rings toward stakes in the grass. It's strangely satisfying, and you quickly fall into a rhythm. Nearby, another knight tries to toss his ring behind his back and hits a tree instead. Still counts, he insists. Only if the tree was your target, you reply. The sun sets on laughter, on jests, on feet stained green from grass and hearts full from play. Back in the great hall, as the fire roars and the feast begins, a bard is invited to recite a tale. But this time it's not a ballad of battle or kings. It's a story told with wide gestures and exaggerated voices about a knight who mistook a goat for a dragon and gave it a home in his chambers. It's your story. They've turned you into legend. You grin and raise your mug. Long live Sir Goatbane. The room erupts with cheers, and that night you fall into bed not exhausted from war, but from living, from laughing, from being with others who remember that even the fiercest of warriors need a reason to feel light. Because when you remove the armor literally and figuratively, what's left isn't just muscle and scars. It's the child you once were, still inside you, laughing through the rain and hiding in grain barrels waiting to be found again. By now, the rhythm of castle life has changed tempo. The mood is lighter, almost whimsical, as though the air itself remembers all the laughter and clamor of games played and stories shared. Even the guards at the gate wear subtle smirks, and the horses seem to trot with a little more bounce. The whole world feels a bit softer, a bit sillier. Today you're invited to an unusual event known only as the Feast of Fools. It's a yearly celebration, but not one of solemn reverence or formal tribute. No, this feast is entirely devoted to role reversal, parody, and joy. Lords become servants, knights become minstrels, and the cook is crowned king of the realm for the day. You're handed a mismatched outfit from the costume chest, a faded velvet robe with stars sewn onto the hem, and a crooked wooden crown far too small for your head. A page declares you court wizard of spoons, and your job, apparently, is to bless every plate with dramatic incantations. And so you do, holding a ladle like a scepter and chanting nonsense rhymes. O noble meat pie, be ye not dry, grant strength to thighs and gleam to eye. It becomes a game of improvisation. Someone else plays a dramatic troubadour strumming a lute with a wooden spoon. Another knight insists on only speaking in rhyme. Even the castle hound wears a cape and is declared a duke for the evening. The feast itself is ridiculous. Bread dyed blue, meat carved into silly shapes, a surprise pie that when cut open reveals a puff of flour and a tiny scroll reading boo. No one eats seriously. Everyone eats joyously. After dinner, the games begin anew. Court charades where noblemen mime barn animals and scribes attempt sword duels with quills. Reverse judgment, where peasants put knights on trial for crimes like too much brooding or walking dramatically in corridors. You are accused of having majestic hair and sentenced to 5 minutes of interpretive dance. You accept the charge and give the performance of your life. As night deepens, everyone is called to the courtyard for lantern lifting. Small paper lanterns, each lit from within by a beeswax candle, are handed out. Each person writes a wish or a joke or a dream onto their lantern before releasing it into the sky. You stare at your blank parchment for a long time before writing, "May joy never need a reason." You light it, whisper something only the wind hears, and let it go. Hundreds of glowing orbs rise slowly into the sky, flickering like stars born from the earth. You stand shoulder to shoulder with friends, strangers, fools, and kings for a day, all watching those tiny lights drift upward into the unknown. There's a hush, a collective stillness. And then the Fool King claps his hands and says, "Let us never grow up entirely, shall we?" The laughter that follows is soft but full. Not the boisterous kind from tournaments or donkey jousts, but the warm kind, the kind that hums in your chest, like an ember refusing to die. You retire to your chamber later than usual, feet sore, cheeks aching from smiling, and heart heavier in the best possible way. Because all of this has taught you something. Fun isn't just something knights indulge in between wars. It isn't fluff or folly. It's survival of another kind. A different kind of armor. A salve against grief. A celebration of the absurdity of life. And perhaps the truest expression of courage is letting yourself be seen in joy, in silliness, in play. And so as you slip beneath your furs, listening to the final echoes of laughter, drifting down the stone corridors, you smile to yourself. Not because you won anything, not because the world changed, but because in this world that so often asks for strength and sacrifice, you remembered how to be light. And that perhaps is the noblest thing a knight can do. And now as the castle settles into silence and the flicker of dying candles casts gentle shadows on ancient stone, it's time to let your mind rest from the day's adventures. You've walked the winding halls of medieval life, felt the weight of armor and the lightness of laughter, and glimpsed the humanity beneath the legend of knights. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the sounds you've heard: the clatter of wooden swords, the soft murmur of poetry, the joyous shouts of children racing through castle grounds. Picture the warmth of firelight on your skin, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the crisp night air, the cool touch of a falcon's feathers as it returns to your glove. These moments, both grand and simple, are the true treasures. Not the battles won or lands claimed, but the laughter shared, the stories told, the friendships forged in the quiet corners of stone walls. As you breathe deeply, let the echo of those days lull you gently into rest. Your body softens, every muscle unwinds, and your thoughts slow like the fading glow of twilight. You've seen that knights, for all their might, found joy not only in glory, but in play, whether it's a game of riddles, a clumsy pony joust, or a feast where fools reign supreme. Fun was their respite, their way to remember that beneath the helmet beats a human heart. So as you drift towards sleep, carry with you the lightness of those moments. Let them cradle you through the night like a soft cloak, comforting and steady. And when you awaken, may you feel refreshed, ready to face whatever quests lie ahead, with courage, wit, and a smile.